Kenneth Walker goes off on Monday Night Football with 3 touchdowns, while the Dolphins show us that they are an absolute fantasy wasteland without Tua. We react to the Monday night games and head on the best waiver wire pickups heading into week 5 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's react to last night's games. There was one game that was super entertaining with the Lions and the Seahawks, and then one game that was completely pointless. The Dolphins are so bad no matter who's under center, besides Tua, obviously. And then the Titans, we had the Will Levis injury early. Mason Rudolph couldn't do anything. And unless you had Tony Pollard, you weren't very happy. But let's start with Kenneth Walker here. He comes back from injury, goes off for 3 touchdowns, over 110 scrimmage yards, and just completely takes back over this backfield. Zach Charbonnet saw some snaps, got some receptions, but in terms of like carries in the backfield, that was all Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, this was actually the pace of the Seahawks preference here, right? The Lions were making big plays going back and forth. The Seahawks like to run a lot of plays. They like to get big plays to DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, Njigba, and you open it up, right? They didn't run early in the game. Then all of a sudden, when they were down, all these big holes happened for Kenneth Walker because they had softened up the Lions defense. Terry and Arnold at that back end were stinking. So eventually the running game opened up. So what I love about the Seahawks is they know what they're doing, right? It's, with Ryan Grubb and Geno Smith, it's not too complicated. Maybe they shouldn't have gone to Tyler Lockett a few times there. He kind of cost them the game in critical moments. But when I look at it overall, I like it because it's DK Metcalf, whoever the running back is at the time, whether it's Zach Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker, they're going to touch the ball a lot. Then you have Jackson Smith and Njigba getting targets, and Geno is dealing, and he's playing well. So I love it. So it's not very complicated. That's what we want for fantasy. It's very consistent. They're going to run the ball well. They're going to pass the ball well, put up fantasy points. And this week they get the Giants at home. So get excited.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Geno Smith later on in our streamer segment that we have. But Geno Smith was one of my favorite plays this week in this matchup. He should have. There was 2 times where a guy went down at like the 1-inch line on a pass. Geno Smith could have had a way bigger day, and that was with DK Metcalf falling there. Like they first called it a touchdown, then they called it back. So Metcalf has a huge day, but still could have been even a bigger fantasy day. I absolutely love Metcalf in this offense. He was a fantastic pick this year for those of you who picked him. And now moving on to the Lions side, Jared Goff has only 18 passing attempts all game. It's crazy because it was a super high scoring game, but they're getting it done with the run game. But then also like big chunk plays, right? Jamison Williams takes it to the house on a 70-yard receiving touchdown. Only has 2 receptions, but that one play made you happy for fantasy. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a fine day. I mean, for him, you want more, but 5 receptions, 45 yards, got a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't have a reception, but scores twice in the end zone. David Montgomery gets in the end zone. It was like everybody got their fair share. Even Sam Laporta with 4 for 53. You would have liked to see a touchdown for him, but with him dealing with the ankle injury, like I liked seeing all of these guys being used for the Lions.
Yeah, Jared Goff catches a touchdown pass. Amon-Ra, if you got 6 points for that, that's nice.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one.
So he actually has more touchdown catches than Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce combined this year, Jared Goff, which is really sad, but it is a true fact as we go into week 5. But Jared Goff is looking good. I think he needed that game to rebuild his confidence. He was turning over the ball quite a bit. So this is what the Lions' game plan is. Get some big plays in the passing game, but make this about the running game for the most part of the game, and that's what you had. So this is maybe the perfect blend. I don't think you'll get Jared Goff going 18 for 18 and just throwing for 12 yards an attempt. That's not going to happen in a lot of games, but you like them. The only unfortunate thing, Michelle, they're on a bye, so you're going to have to make plans without all these Lions that have been coming through all season long.
I know that's the worst part is the bye week. Even like I was gonna say, Jameson Williams, you just got to keep playing him. It's been 3 good weeks for him out of the 4,
Yeah.
but that bye week is gonna hurt. That's a lot of good fantasy assets here. The other two teams that played in the other game. I mean,
Yep.
I was hopeful that maybe Tyler Huntley could help be better in this offense than Skylar Thompson. It wasn't any better. I don't know what happens to this Dolphins offense, but they cannot operate unless it's Tua Tagovailoa back there. It doesn't make any sense to me, but they fall apart. Everyone has a terrible, terrible fantasy day. Devin Achan, 10 carries for 15 yards, gets 3 receptions for 14. Jalen Waddle leads the team with 36 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill, I mean, how many times can that man get open? He should have had like 200 yards last night. I just not I don't know what you do with them. Like, can you bench Tyreek Hill? Because I'm benching the rest, but can you bench Tyreek Hill? They get the Patriots next week, and then they get a bye, and we'll see when Tua gets back. But oh my goodness, what are you doing with Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, unfortunately, you got to play him because as soon as you don't play him, they're going to get him involved in the running game, and he's going to score on the reverse, or he's going to make one guy miss and take it to the house. I mean, the Patriots defense isn't all that daunting, right? They're burnable. We saw the 49ers do that. So just get the ball into Tyreek Hill's hands. Like Tyler Huntley, I get it. You're not going to be able to stretch the field, but just throw this guy a 4-yard pass and see what happens, right? Let him blow by the defense. So I think it was a terrible coaching job by Mike McDaniel. I thought they were going to be able to run the ball effectively on the Titans. Did not happen. Where on the other side, I don't get it. That passing game is dead to me. Like Mason Rudolph, everyone called for him. Will Levis be benched? Well, Will Levis got hurt. Mason Rudolph came in. Calvin Ridley, nothing. DeAndre Hopkins, not much. At least we did see Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears come to life. I really think that needs to be what the Titans do going forward. But again, another team that hopefully can figure out some things during a bye this week. So a lot of teams on the bye for Monday night.
Yeah, honestly, Tony Pollard's the only guy I'm interested in the Titans moving forward until we see something
Yeah.
change. Like Calvin Ridley is going to have other big games this year. Just they're going to be impossible to figure out when. So I am fine with just never playing him until he proves that he can show some consistency. Now the Titans are another team on bye. Luckily, that's not going to hurt you too bad, right? Maybe you just need a replacement for Tony Pollard. But the Eagles are on bye, the Chargers are on bye, and the Lions are on bye. Those are the 4 teams on bye. This is our first bye week this year. So these waiver wire pickups become extra, extra important. So we're going to dig into all the top waiver wire priorities, where we would rank them if they're available in your league. So we'll dig into all of that after we take a short break.
This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Hey, NFL fans, it is the first bye week, so we've got to the quarter part of the NFL season. If you haven't gotten into the action yet, this is time to start your season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets before the game. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet only on FanDuel. That's only on FanDuel.com. Again, good action this week, starting with Thursday night. We have the Buccaneers and Falcons, and closing out with Michelle Steelers facing the Cowboys on Sunday night, all the way through Monday, Chiefs and Saints. So good stuff all around. So a lot of action to get in on here in week 5 if you haven't done so. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com. Again, you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed there with your first $5 bet, only on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Michelle, let's dive into the waiver wire. There's some bye week replacements we're going to look at, but there's some guy that could be a league winner in the second half of the season. He is going to be practicing on Wednesday. I don't think he'll be activated yet, but he's coming. The Browns need him. It's Nick Chubb. They need him emotionally. They need him offensively. They need him every which way. Looks good. We didn't expect him to be on the field doing some things after that knee injury, but Nick Chubb, if your league does not have an IR spot, no one is stashing him. I think he has to be a priority. I think more so if you're a winning team, right? And you want to look for bigger things later. If you're desperate, I don't think you can get help from him this week.
Yeah, I can't envision he plays already this week, and if he does, it's going to take some time to get back to like getting a lot of carries. It would be awesome if he's active, but yeah, if you're in a league that doesn't have IR, there's a solid chance that he is sitting on waivers, and people are just waiting for the right time to pick him up so they don't have to waste a spot for too long. It's time to now make sure you go out there and pick him up because it's not like Jerome Ford's struggling out there. This whole run game's struggling. Ford is being used as the receiving back. He'll still get those, but they need a goal line back and Nick Chubb. They need someone that can get them to tough yards. This offense is struggling. So I do think when Nick Chubb's back and they feel good, he's going to get a big workload. Now, the former Browns running back, Kareem Hunt, is all of a sudden a starting running back again. Now for the Chiefs, his first team that he started with. Instantly when he gets activated off practice squad and activated in the game, he got the most snaps in the backfield, the most carries by far. Saw 3 targets, which was the same as Carson Steele, but he actually caught his and got some receiving yards. It looks like Kareem Hunt's the guy here to roster and to play. Now, the only unfortunate part is Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back at practice this week. So do you think that hurts Hunt, or is it just going to be normally Edwards-Helaire normally isn't involved anyways? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think for right now, they got to look at Hunt a little bit more. They might be inclined to slow down with CEH if Hunt is looking good here, and maybe till he's fully healthy, given Isaiah Pacheco's on the shelf. They do have Samaje Perine who can help situationally. He did pilfer the touchdown from Hunt, unfortunately, or it would have been a very good second half for Hunt. They're putting away the Chargers. So I do like Hunt quite a bit. They're playing the Saints this week. It can be a tough run defense, but it is in prime time. Hunt's going to be back at home. So I think it's going to be a good game for him going forward. So, again, I would think the Chiefs would be judicious with the CEH at this point. Carson Steele, forget it. He's done.
I think if you need a 1-week fill-in for these buys, Kareem Hunt's a really, really good choice here. After that, you get a bye week. Then Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be back. Pacheco, I guess he won't be back till later on. But still, this backfield is going to be gross, I think, most of the season. But at least for this 1 week fill-in, I think Kareem Hunt's a solid pick there. Now, there's this group of 4 guys that are all splitting a backfield, but really, mostly there's someone ahead of them, right? And Rico Dowdle, I guess, is the one that's getting the most amount of work. But then there's also Chase Brown that's closing the gap between Zach Moss. There's Bucky Irving closing the gap between Rachaad White, big time. And then take Bigsby, who gets his once every, few games, right? But he's looking good. Bigsby's looking good. So rank those guys in order of how you would want to prioritize them in waiver pickups this week. Again, it's Dowdle, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, and take Bigsby.
Yeah, I'm going to Bucky Irving first because there's a slight takeover there. I know Rachaad White was still used in kind of the receiving role, right? But they were very even lines, which was bizarre. They had 49 yards rushing each in that game. I think they each got 10 carries, but Irving got the pay dirt. I mean, Rachaad White was stuff. Irving put it in. So now it looks like a clear split. Looks like Irving has standalone value. And it's a decent enough matchup. I know the Falcons are pretty tough, but Irving has looked good. So I think I would put prior on him. Rico Dowdle, I would look at next. I don't love him this week against the Steelers, but he's getting the volume here and seems like the guy in the passing down situation they're going to use, and that's important because they don't have a lot of receivers. Then I would look at, I think, this is a tough one. I'm going Chase Brown because I think they're kind of using him with Zach Moss at the same time, where Tank Bigsby doesn't seem like he's getting enough, and it looks like Travis Etienne might be okay with that shoulder injury to go against the Colts this week. So, again, that's how I look at it, maybe short and long term, but I do like Irving and Dowdle the most here because I think they could have significant roles where they get double-digit touches.
Yeah, for me, Bucky Irving is top, pretty easily among this group. He's now outscored Rachaad White in 2 straight weeks in fantasy. It's not like it's been crazy games, but like you said, he got the touchdown again last week, and he did play a career high 32 snaps. His snaps are increasing. Rachaad White, he's starting to close that gap. It was going to take time. He's a later round rookie. But I think while White continues to struggle, Irving's going to end up taking that job by the end of the year. And then I am actually going with Chase Brown. Those 2 goal line carries, if they start using him around there, they're using these backs the opposite of what we thought, right? Zach Moss is on the field for so many of the passing downs, getting targets, and any last minute drills, it's Zach Moss. And then Chase Brown all of a sudden got the goal line carries. We'll see if that sticks or if that was just the game plan against a tougher Panthers interior defensive line and they wanted to spread it out. But I think Chase Brown's a fine pickup. I wouldn't want to start him this week against the Ravens, but I am willing to pick him up, hold him on my bench just to see if he continues to get that workload. I really don't care about Rico Dowdle or Tank Bigsby at all. Like, I would have to be desperate for either one. I know Donald he actually played the fewest snaps he's played all year, 25 last game. He did get his most in a game carries at 11. I don't care. He got the one receiving touchdown. I want nothing to do with Donald. And Take Bigsby got 17 snaps when ETN missed part of the game. Like, he was out for a sec, and then he was injured and he still barely played. So I don't want Tank or Donald, but Bucky Irving, someone I'm trying to get this week. Again, I don't know if I'm ready to play him, but I want to have him on my bench, stash him. And then Chase Brown, I'm comfortable with picking him up if you're looking for someone that maybe can break out later in the year. Now, Tyler Algiers will not get away from just annoying us to death with our Bijan Robinson shares. He played 21 snaps, saw one more carry than Robinson. I don't think Algier is a good play ever, but if you are Bijan Robinson's fantasy manager, like, Tyler Algier should be in your bench, because if one of these guys were to get hurt, they would be great, right? They would get all the workload.
Yeah.
But with them splitting, it hurts. But I do think you should have Algier on your bench if you roster Bijan.
Yeah, hopefully it can translate to a Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker type situation, right? You just got Charbonnet to step right in and be the feature back, and then when Walker came, he was the lead guy. But right now, Bijan needs to get more touches. I know he's the main receiving back on this team, and that is pretty clear. But he needs to have a get-well game to prove that he's the alpha. I mean, he should be the alpha. He's a first-round pick. He needs to prove it a little bit more. I think there's something there that he's not just kind of running the way they would like a little bit. So I think Algier, however, again, it's weird, but when you handcuff a guy, sometimes he is juicier if he would be the only guy. And I see Algier being that guy should Bijan go down. So always have it. He's like Braylon Allen. If you're a Breece Hall manager, you need to have this guy.
Yeah, and then keep an eye on Jonathan Taylor's practice status. He suffered a high ankle sprain on Sunday. Apparently it's mild. Maybe he can play, but like Trey Sermon, he might be the guy to just go get and prioritize if you're desperate for, like, if you have bye weeks this week and you really need someone to play this week that could have a big upside. Obviously, if Jonathan Taylor plays, then okay, you wasted that. But if he doesn't, Trey Sermon's going to get all the workload. That's what we saw from Shane Steichen last year. When Jonathan Taylor missed, Zach Moss got all the workload, right? Like, he is a one running back type of guy, and they get the Jaguars. That's a nice matchup. I can't imagine Taylor's just fine to play after a high ankle sprain the very next week, right?
Yeah, I mean, they say it's a mild high ankle sprain. I don't know. Like, is a mild high ankle sprain like a low ankle sprain? I really don't know. And people always try to speculate. Well, you'll find out. Just be patient. And if you know if someone's hurt and they have a chance of missing game, you're going to go out and get that back up, right? And it was hard to recommend handcuffing Jonathan Taylor to Trey Sermon because you weren't sure. You need to see things play out a little bit. It's not very clear like it was last year with Zach Moss or even years before with Nyheim Hines. It was just hard to figure out. But now Sermon seems to be the guy. So if you can get him, look, you might be out of luck if you're a Taylor manager trying to do that, but do your best to try to get him. But there are some other options, as we mentioned before, if you lose out on Sermon this week.
Now, there are some interesting wide receiver options that are available, and that would be, viable options to play this week. So let's go through them. Xavier Legette, he's broke out with Andy Dalton last week with Adam Thielen on IR. Wan'Dale Robinson's getting a stupid amount of targets. I mean, it's not like he's doing anything with these targets, but he's getting the volume like no other. Josh Downs looked great in his second game back from injury, but that was with Joe Flacco. We'll see who will be the quarterback under center for the Colts this week. Dontavian Wicks had a big game this last week with 2 touchdowns. And then we have Christian Watson injured. And then Tutu Atwell. It's not exciting to play him, but he has led the Rams both the last 2 weeks with Cooper Kupp out, over 80 receiving yards in both of those games. So rank those 5 guys in terms of who you want to pick up for the year. And then who, like, if you need to play someone this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think Robinson is here to stay. I mean, they need a second receiver. They don't really have much. They don't have anything at tight end. They don't throw to running backs very often, except for a few passes to Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. So he's going to get volume. Malik Neighbors is going to get attention. I think he has the best value consistently over the course of the season in PPR leagues. I feel like Wan'Dale, though, is a lot like Josh Downs and a lot like Tutu Atwell. Little guys that are quick, not going to make always the big plays downfield, but can rack up the volume, short quickness, slot type guys. So I would go Josh Downs next. I mean, they've been waiting for him they're behind in look at what Alec Pierce had done early in the season, but I think now behind Michael Pittman Jr., look at Josh Downs being a factor. Dontavian Wicks might be a rental. I mean, they still have Romeo Doubs. We'll see about Christian Watson injury. If those guys are kind of limited this week and you need somebody behind Jane Reed, the matchup is fantastic against the Rams. On the flip side of that, Atwell, as long as Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are out, I know everyone's buzzing about Jordan Whittington and Demarcus Robinson, everyone else, but Atwell's the producer. Just go to the guy who's producing. He has big playability on top of having a chance to score. So I do like Atwell quite a bit, but again, it's going to change if and when Nacua and Kupp come back.
I'll say, I think if I'm going like year long looking for someone that can break out in the second half, like if I have a winning team, I don't have to worry about buys or injuries this week. Xavier Legette is very, very interesting. I think that would be my number one choice for long term. They have a tougher matchup this week, but long term, as long as Andy Dalton stays, that's always the issue, though, right? Are they going to go to Bryce Young? That would destroy you. Josh Downs, I loved him coming into this year. Then he got injured. I think he's insanely talented. I know Anthony Richardson's having his issues. Josh Downs is also, I want him on my team, but I already have him, right? This is the issue. I picked him up last week. He's already on my bench. I've been waiting for Josh Downs. So I already have him. He was definitely number one. If you need someone to play this week, Dontavian Wicks is a fantastic option against the Rams. I know they held the Bears because Caleb Williams and that Bears passing attack just can't do anything, I guess. But I do think Jordan Love will eat up on this Rams secondary without Christian Watson. Like I love Jaden Reed this week, but Wicks also has a great opportunity. So if I'm going for someone to play this week, it's Dontavian Wicks. They're among those three. Now, what about Trey Tucker? For the Raiders, he's in his second season. Devontae Adams has a hamstring injury or who knows what. They're versus Denver and then Pitt. He has had 2 good fantasy weeks in a row, getting the targets. Any interest in Trey Tucker, or is the matchup just way too hard against the Broncos?
Well, this is really sad because the most I'm going to see Devontae Adams is eating at Taco Bell in his own house. I mean, this is really bad. He does not want to be there, clearly, but they seem to love Trey Tucker, right? They wanted to have a big play guy, even got involved near the goal line for a touchdown. So Jacoby Myers, I don't know, like this whole Raiders offense, just I don't know if they have actually a clue what they're doing with Luke Getsy. Like Brock Bowers should have had a big game last week. He completely disappeared after 3 really good games as a rookie. So I'm not sure what you're going to get, but it seems like they want to just turn the page to different guys. So I think Trey Tucker, if they trade Adams, he's worth it. But at this point, let's watch how this develops here because I just don't want to invest too highly in this Raiders offense, period, at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Tucker's interesting in a deep league to stash him for a bit. But if you're in a normal like 10-team league, I probably wouldn't be too interested in him just yet. With these, they get the Broncos and then the Steelers. Those are 2 tough matchups. We're going to get into the best streaming quarterbacks, tight ends, and defenses of the week to close out today's show. But first, we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. It's a fantastic app because it shows you the images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. It takes like literally less than 30 seconds to buy tickets. It's so incredibly fast. 2 taps and you're set. And then tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. You get to take the guessing work out of buying tickets when you use Game Time. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Terms to apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Number 1 streamer of the week. It's got to be Geno Smith. He has finished as the quarterback 8, like on the dot, in 3 of 4 weeks this season. Gets the Giants. Love him this week. This offense is looking really great for him.
Yeah, I think he'll come through again. I mean, Geno might be getting close to the weekly starter status if some of the guys in front of him struggle. Like, I know everyone's been on Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold quite a bit, but I think Geno's the guy that I'm going to rely upon mostly. I don't think it's going to end for him where you could see Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield having clunkers all of a sudden. But Geno Smith, I think the system is just really good right now. We've learned that very quickly with Ryan Grubb. So Giants stink. They can't really cover much. Their pass rush is a little bit banged up. So I do love the Seahawks, and their offensive line has been an underrated story. They've been really good pass protecting and run blocking. Pretty much allows them to do whatever they want with their quarterback, who's also running well and really throwing well out of the pocket.
Yeah, he and DK Metcalf are just on fire right now with their connection. So, Geno Smith is one of he should be picked up not even just as a streamer, but like you mentioned, if you have a quarterback that's struggling, aka Patrick Mahomes, I know no one wants to talk about it. Pick up Geno Smith and play him over him. I'm sorry, you don't have to drop Patrick Mahomes,
Yeah.
but just I think Geno Smith is the better option in the near future. And then Justin Fields has a huge game this week, 32 points. And it was in a nice matchup against the Colts. And the Cowboys might seem scary in week 4, but with how many injuries they have to the defense, I actually think Justin Fields is still a solid streaming play this week. It's at home. I do think the Cowboys will be able to put up points against the Steelers defense. So that means that Fields will have to also then try to put up points. And I think he's a solid option this week.
Yeah, they'll use Justin Fields quite a bit to run on the Cowboys. The Cowboys have actually been kind of weak against running quarterbacks. I mean, Deshaun Watson even had, I think, around 40 yards against them. Lamar Jackson had success. I think they let Jackson and Derek Carr score a rushing touchdown. So all these things line up very well without Micah Parsons as well. So he's going to have time. No pass rush is going to get to him. The Cowboys have been really struggling up front. So, and I think Justin Fields is going to have to carry this running game. The way that Najee Harris is having issues and Jalen Warren, he's going to have to take control and command. And then George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, he's feeling it with the top 2 targets. We really like this offense right now. So Justin Fields is up there. I think for sure him and Geno Smith, top 12 plays this week. And guys that, again, are going to be beyond streamers. Now, this might be the last call for Fields. Like if they kind of declare Russell Wilson, hey, you're not going to start, then this is the last time you can go get Fields. But Geno Smith, go get these guys. They should not be out there. I know everyone's on Darnold Mayfield, but these are the 2 guys I'd rather have all season long.
Wow, that's a good bold take there. Now, Joe Flacco,
Yeah.
if he gets a start, he gets to play the Jaguars. And the Jaguars the last 2 weeks allowed CJ Stroud 24 fantasy points. And then the week before that, Josh Allen 31. Tua in week 1 had 19 points. We know Flacco's willing to throw it up. We saw it last year with the Browns. He had some good fantasy days, and he was willing to throw it up against the Steelers. And the Jaguars are not a good defense. So I guess you have to like really be brave here to do this, but I feel like Anthony Richardson's hip looked bad, right? He tried to come back in. He like fell immediately. I don't know. I feel like with the adrenaline worn off, like his hip has to be killing him. I feel like Flacco will be starting this week.
Yeah, and this is also a development where you look at Jonathan Taylor. He's hurting, right? They might be looking more at the pass game. We've seen this with Shane Steichen with the Eagles. They just kind of adjust to what the matchup says. And the matchup might say, and the personnel might say, I don't have my running quarterback. I may not have Taylor in there. Let's fling it, right? We got Michael Pittman and Josh Downs playing well. The secondary stinks. I like the matchup for both of them. So, yeah, I mean, I like Flacco. I mean, super flex, I think you have to go get him because he just has too many weapons, right? If Richardson misses, you've got to play Flacco, I think, in that situation. And I think you can also stream him in deeper leagues for sure this week. And if you play that game and you have Jalen Hurts, right, and you just want one guy to play 1 week and you don't want anybody else to bug Hurts and make you make a tough decision, Flacco would be the guy to go get.
Absolutely. And then at tight end, there's not a lot of great options, but Tucker Kraft is someone that probably should be picked up if you're struggling at the tight end position. Played 85% of the Packers snaps last week compared to Musgrave's just 33. Got 9 targets, 6 receptions, 53 yards, and a touchdown. Now, the Packers are throwing so much because they had to come back from a 28-0 lead. So it's not like I expect Kraft to get 9 targets each game, but that playing time over Musgrave, if that keeps up, then I do think he's a viable option to have to roster. And then they get a nice matchup against the Rams. So I do think Kraft is an option that's sitting on waivers. There's not many of them. Like your other option would be like what, Cade Otton against the Falcons. He did get 9 targets, but like last week he did get 8 also in week 3. It's not turning into a whole lot, but I guess no tight end is turning targets into a lot. So those are probably your two options this week: Tucker Kraft at the Rams or K. Dotton against the Falcons.
Yeah, I was playing you in fantasy this week, and my team did win, by the way. But I was looking at my roster, and I was like, wait, I've got Tucker Kraft and K. Dotton and Muth and Taysom Hill. I said, how did I get all these guys? And it must have been something I liked about them in the preseason that I wanted to stash Tucker Kraft. But I think he might be just a better all-around receiver than Luke Musgrave. Musgrave is a good field stretcher, but Kraft, I think, has more attention from Jordan Love at this point. And K. Dotton, it's hard to know between Jalen McMillan and Trey Palmer, who's really that third guy that always comes in. But if they're fading Rachaad White a little bit as a receiver, not using him as much and having him on the field as much, I think Otton would be the guy. I mean, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are balling out to the point where you've got to roll coverage to them. And you've seen Otton eat up targets here the last couple of weeks. And keep in mind, I mean, that was something that we had with Liam Cohen, with Tyler Higbee in the Rams. And so that is translating a little bit. That's why I liked Otton a little bit. The matchup is pretty good against the Falcons. They have good safeties, but you can throw to the tight end against them.
Listen, if your tight end can get 8 and 9 targets like he did the last 2 weeks, you might just be grateful, right? That might be the best you can ask.
It's bad out there. So I mean, especially without Laporta and Dallas Goedert, it's been good. I mean, you're missing a lot of key guys this week. So you got to dig deeper probably in some injuries that you're accounting for as well.
Yeah. And then lastly here with defenses, the Broncos are still out there on a lot of waivers. They're the third highest scoring fantasy defense in the league. They get to play the Raiders that are allowing the 5th most fantasy points to opposing defenses. Like, they have to be the number one pickup if you're looking for a defense this week.
Yeah, I like them this week. I mean, Seahawks and Daniel Jones at home. You like that for the Seahawks. They can come through. They'll be a little bit angry because they were really bad defensively in Detroit. So they're going to come home and clean that up. I think you can look at either side of that Patriots-Dolphins matchup. The Dolphins were not very good there against Tennessee, but the Patriots can take advantage of that. They like to take advantage of limited offenses, which the Dolphins will be. The Dolphins could also have some shots against their old friend Jacoby Brissett. They probably like Brissett right now at quarterback to really help their situation. And then one team that's kind of sneaky is the Washington Commanders. No one is going to bid you for them. They're at home against the Browns. The Browns are dysfunctional. This Dan Quinn defense slowly coming together. So I think this could be a problem for Deshaun Watson, especially with that pass protection breaking down in front of him.
Yeah, and then I also think the Seahawks are interesting against the Giants. People might be dropping them after, or they could have always been on waivers. But if someone rostered him after that game last night with the Lions, they're probably going to get dropped. But the Giants are allowing the 6th most fantasy points to opposing defenses this season. Malik Neighbors is in concussion protocol. Who knows if he plays? And the Lions did so good against the Seahawks because they just ran it nonstop. Like, obviously there was some big pass plays too, but the running really destroyed them. The Giants don't have that type of running game. So I think the Seahawks against the Giants will be good as well. So those are some options for you, but definitely the Broncos against the Raiders are number one. We are going to get into our running back and quarterback rankings starting tomorrow, then hit on our wide receiver and tight end rankings on Thursday. So we're just digging into week 5 here. Don't miss it. Thank you for listening to today's show. Thank you to all. Bye, y'all.